The space around Pluto had been empty for billions of years, cold, dark, and forgotten by most people on Earth. Then one Tuesday morning, everything changed. Lieutenant Sam Garcia was drinking his third cup of coffee at monitoring station Alpha 7 when his computer started screaming. Red lights flashed across every screen. Numbers that should have stayed steady were jumping around like crazy. Sam rubbed his eyes and looked again. The readings were impossible. Something huge was out there. Sam called his boss, Commander Jake Sullivan, who arrived 10 minutes later still wearing his pajama shirt under his uniform jacket. Jake was a good commander, the kind who treated his people right, and never asked them to do anything he wouldn't do himself. He looked at the screens and whistled low. "How big are we talking, Sam?" "Almost 2 miles long, sir, maybe more. It's hard to tell because it keeps changing shape." Jake stared at the data streaming across the monitors. In 20 years of deep space work, he had never seen anything like this. The object wasn't moving in any normal way. It didn't follow the rules that everything else in space followed. It just appeared, like someone had placed it there while no one was looking. "Get me a visual," Jake ordered. The main screen flickered and then showed them something that made both men step backward. The ship looked like it was made of glass and light. Its surface moved like water, but slowly, like thick honey. Sometimes it was clear enough to see through. Sometimes it was solid and bright. Colors flowed across it in patterns that hurt to look at directly. "Sir," Sam said quietly, "I think we should call Earth." Within 6 hours, every major government on the planet knew about the alien ship. Within 12 hours, the first human vessels were racing toward Pluto. The fastest ship belonged to the military, carrying Admiral Victoria Stone and 50 of her best people. Victoria was tough as steel and twice as smart. She had won 3 space battles against rebel colonies and never lost a single ship under her command. Dr. Franz Weber came next, representing the European Union's first contact team. Franz had studied alien theories his whole life. He spoke 12 languages and had written the book on peaceful communication with unknown species. If anyone could talk to aliens, it would be Franz. The Asian Federation sent General Liu Wei along, with their most respected scholars and diplomats. Liu was famous for solving problems that other people said couldn't be solved. He had ended 2 wars just by talking to the right people at the right time. Jake Sullivan got orders to take his research ship closer to the alien vessel. His team included Dr. Lisa Morgan, who knew more about alien life than almost anyone on Earth, Captain Pete Hayes, who could fly anything with engines, and engineer Amy Carter, who could fix things that weren't supposed to be fixable. As Jake's ship got within 100 miles of the alien vessel, something incredible happened. The alien ship woke up. Lights raced across its surface like lightning, but in perfect patterns that looked almost like writing. Then something even stranger occurred. A voice spoke inside everyone's head at the same time. It didn't use words exactly, but somehow they all understood it perfectly. The voice was neither friendly nor unfriendly. It was simply there, as real as their own thoughts. "Approach and be judged." Jake felt his heart hammering in his chest. Lisa grabbed his arm, her face pale. Pete started swearing under his breath, and Amy just stared at the alien ship with her mouth open. "Well," Jake said finally, "I guess that answers the question about whether they want to talk." The message was received by every ship heading toward Pluto. Admiral Victoria Stone arrived first as expected. Her warship was sleek and dangerous, armed with enough weapons to destroy a small moon. She had brought her finest officers and most experienced diplomats. Victoria was not a woman who accepted failure. She approached the alien ship with confidence, ready to represent humanity's strength and military might. Her ship moved steadily forward until it was close enough to touch the alien vessel. Then the lights flashed once, brilliant and blinding. When everyone could see again, Victoria's ship was back where it started, 100 miles away. Victoria and her crew were unconscious for 3 hours. When they woke up, none of them could remember what had happened aboard the alien ship. They only knew they had failed. Dr. Franz Weber tried next. He approached slowly, broadcasting messages of peace in every language he knew. He brought gifts from Earth, music, art, literature. Franz believed that understanding came from sharing culture and showing good intentions. The same thing happened. Flash of light, ship moved back, crew unconscious, no memories. General Liu Wei had the same result. So did the next team, and the next one after that. Over the following weeks, Earth sent its best and brightest. Military heroes, brilliant scientists, skilled diplomats, famous leaders. Each delegation was certain they would succeed where others had failed. Each delegation was wrong. The alien ship waited patiently in its strange orbit around Pluto. It never moved toward Earth, never threatened anyone, never did anything hostile. It just waited, and rejected everyone who came to meet it. Back on Earth, panic was starting to set in. Politicians argued about what to do next. Scientists worked around the clock trying to understand the alien technology. Military leaders made plans for attacks that everyone hoped would never be needed. The alien ship had been there for 6 weeks when Commander Jake Sullivan received new orders. The message came directly from Earth's Space Command, signed by people whose names Jake recognized from history books. All conventional approaches have failed. We are now accepting volunteers from non-essential personnel. Hazard pay will be provided. Jake read the order 3 times before he understood what it meant. Earth's governments were so desperate that they were willing to send ordinary people, mechanics, cooks, clerks, anyone brave enough or foolish enough to try. Jake called his crew, together in the ship's small meeting room. Lisa looked tired. She had been studying the alien vessel's energy patterns for weeks without learning anything useful. Pete was frustrated because his piloting skills were useless against technology that moved ships around like chess pieces. Amy had filled 17 notebooks with drawings and theories, but none of them explained how the alien ship worked. Earth wants volunteers, Jake told them. Not experts this time, just regular people. That's insane, Lisa said. If trained diplomats and military officers can't make contact, what chance do ordinary civilians have? Pete shrugged. Maybe that's the point. Maybe being trained is the problem. Amy looked up from her notebook. The ship's energy patterns change slightly each time someone approaches. It's like it's learning about us, figuring out what we are. Maybe it doesn't want what we think it wants. Jake nodded slowly. Maybe you're right. Maybe we've been thinking about this all wrong. Within 48 hours, volunteers were arriving from all over the solar system. They came on cargo ships and passenger transports, supply vessels and mining barges. Most of them had never been close to anything more dangerous than a broken recycling unit. They were mechanics and janitors, security guards and food service workers. People with ordinary jobs and ordinary lives who had decided to do something extraordinary, even if they didn't fully understand what that meant. Jake looked at the list of volunteers and shook his head. 48 people who had nothing in common, except courage and curiosity. 48 people who might succeed where Earth's finest had failed. Or 48 people who were about to become the biggest disappointment in human history. Either way, Jake thought, it was going to be interesting. Danny Price was fixing a broken air filter when the call came through Luna Station's speakers. He wiped grease off his hands and listened as Colonel Rick Barnes explained the situation. Earth needed volunteers to approach the alien ship. Their pay was good. Really good. Good enough to clear all of Danny's debts and maybe have some left over. Danny had been working at Luna Station's waste recycling plant for 8 months. It wasn't glamorous work, but it paid better than anything he could find on Earth. At 28, Danny had already learned that life rarely turned out the way people planned. He had been the star quarterback in high school, leading his small Ohio town's team to the regional championship. Back then, everyone said he would do great things. That was 10 years ago. Since then, Danny had worked at a dozen different jobs. He had been a store clerk, a factory worker, a delivery driver, and a security guard. None of the jobs lasted very long. Danny wasn't bad at any of them, but he wasn't particularly good either. He was just ordinary. His girlfriend Katie had broken up with him 6 months before he left for Luna Station. She said Danny never took chances, never reached for anything better than what he had. She said he was afraid to fail, so he never really tried to succeed. Danny hadn't argued with her because deep down he thought she might be right. Now, listening to Colonel Barnes talk about volunteers needed for a dangerous mission to contact aliens, Danny felt something stirring in his chest. Maybe this was his chance to prove Katie wrong. Maybe this was his chance to finally do something that mattered. Danny walked to the volunteer sign-up station after his shift ended. There were already 20 names on the list. He recognized most of them: maintenance workers, cafeteria staff, security guards, and supply clerks. People like him who worked jobs that kept the station running but never made headlines. Tony Chen was there, signing his name with shaky handwriting. Tony worked in the kitchen and sent most of his pay back to his family on Earth. He was quiet and polite and made the best coffee on the station. "Why are you doing this, Tony?" Danny asked. Tony looked up and smiled. "My daughter wants to be a scientist. If I do this, maybe I can pay for her education. What about you?" Danny thought about it. "I guess I want to see if I can do something important for once." Betty Adams signed up next. She was 55 years old and had been working maintenance jobs in space for 20 years. Her husband had died in an accident on Mars, and her kids were grown up with families of their own. "I figure at my age, what do I have to lose?" Betty said with a laugh. "Besides, someone needs to show those aliens what regular people are like." More volunteers came throughout the week. There was Gary Miller, a supply clerk who stuttered when he was nervous. Maria Santos, who cleaned the offices and sang softly to herself while she worked. Bobby Lee, a security guard who collected old comic books and dreamed of writing his own stories someday. Each person had their own reason for volunteering. Some needed the money. Some were bored with their lives. Some were curious about aliens. A few just wanted to feel important for once in their lives. Danny found himself becoming friends with the other volunteers. They met for coffee during their breaks and talked about what might happen when they reached the alien ship. None of them had any special training for first contact with alien species. None of them spoke multiple languages or understood advanced science. They were just ordinary people who had decided to do something extraordinary. Colonel Barnes called them together 3 days before departure. He was a career military officer who had commanded Luna Station for 5 years. He was fair, but strict, and he treated everyone with respect regardless of their job. "I want to be honest with you," Barnes said, looking at the group of volunteers. "Earth's best people have tried to make contact with this alien ship. Military officers, scientists, diplomats, they all failed. I don't know why the government thinks sending you will make any difference." Danny raised his hand. "Maybe that's exactly why it might work, sir. Maybe being the best isn't what the aliens are looking for." Barnes nodded slowly. "Maybe you're right, Price. I hope you are. Because if this doesn't work, I don't know what Earth will try next." The transport ship Mercury arrived at Luna Station on a Tuesday morning. It was an old cargo vessel that had been quickly modified to carry passengers. The captain was Helen Brooks, a former military pilot who now ran supply missions between Earth and the outer colonies. She had volunteered to take the group to Pluto for free. "I've been flying for 30 years, Captain Brooks told the volunteers as they boarded. "I've never seen anything like this alien ship. The reports say it's beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Whatever happens out there, just remember that you're representing all of humanity." The journey to Pluto took 6 days. Danny spent most of the time talking with the other volunteers and staring out the windows at space. He had never been this far from Earth before, and the darkness between the stars made him feel very small. Tony Chen taught him how to play a card game his grandfather had learned in China. Betty Adams showed him pictures of her grandchildren on her tablet. Maria Santos shared stories about her childhood in Mexico. For the first time in years, Danny felt like he belonged somewhere. On the 6th day, Captain Brooks called everyone to the main cabin. "We're approaching the alien ship now," she announced. "I want everyone to see this." Danny pressed his face against the window and gasped. The alien ship was nothing like the pictures he had seen on the news. It was enormous, stretching out like a crystal mountain floating in space. Light moved across its surface in patterns that seemed almost alive. Sometimes the ship looked solid and real. Sometimes it looked like it was made of nothing but light and dreams. "My God," whispered Gary Miller, forgetting to stutter. "It's beautiful." As the Mercury got closer, the alien ship began to change. The harsh white lights that other ships had, reported were gone. Instead, gentle waves of blue and silver rippled across the crystal surface. The patterns looked almost friendly, like the ship was welcoming them. "That's different," Captain Brooks said over the communication system. "The previous reports described aggressive light patterns. This is completely different." Danny felt something strange happening in his mind. It wasn't the commanding voice that other crews had described. Instead, it felt like someone was gently knocking on a door, asking permission to come in rather than demanding entry. The feeling grew stronger as they approached the alien ship. One by one, the volunteers were transported aboard the alien vessel. Danny watched as Tony Chen disappeared in a shimmer of light, then reappeared 10 minutes later back on the Mercury. Tony looked disappointed but not afraid. "What happened?" Danny asked. "I was in a room that looked like my childhood home," Tony said. "Someone asked me questions, but I don't think I gave the right answers. I'm sorry, everyone." Betty Adams went next, then Gary Miller, then Maria Santos. Each person returned within minutes, their memories intact but their faces showing the same disappointment. They had been tested and found wanting, just like all the others. Danny was the last volunteer. As the familiar tingling sensation of alien technology surrounded him, he closed his eyes and tried not to be afraid. Whatever was about to happen, he was ready for it. When he opened his eyes, he was standing in his childhood bedroom in Ohio, and nothing would ever be the same again. Danny stood in his old bedroom and felt his heart racing. Everything was exactly the way he remembered it from when he was 12 years old. The faded blue wallpaper with tiny rockets on it, the bed with the squeaky springs, the desk where he used to do his homework. Even the smell was right, old wood and his mother's laundry soap. But this wasn't really his bedroom. Danny knew he was still on the alien ship somehow. The walls felt too perfect, like someone had built them from his memories instead of wood and paint. A voice spoke and Danny jumped. It didn't come from anywhere he could see, but it filled the room like music. The voice was strange, not male or female, not young or old. It sounded like wind and water and distant thunder all mixed together. "Danny Price," the voice said, "we have watched your people for many years. We have tested your leaders and your warriors and your smartest minds. All of them failed our test. Why should you be different?" Danny looked around the impossible room and scratched his head. "I don't know if I should be different. I'm not special like those other people. I've never been the smartest or the bravest or the strongest, but maybe that's okay." The room began to change around him. The walls melted away like ice in the sun, and suddenly Danny was standing on the football field behind his high school. He was 17 again, wearing his red and gold uniform. The crowd was cheering and he could hear his name being called over the loudspeaker. It was the night of the championship game, the best moment of his entire life. "This was when you were important," the voice said. "This was when people looked up to you. Do you want to go back to this time?" Danny watched his younger self throw the winning touchdown pass. He remembered how it felt to be the hero, to have everyone in town proud of him. It had been amazing, but it had also been a long time ago. "No," Danny said. "I don't want to go back." "Why not? You were happy then. You mattered then." Danny thought about it carefully, because staying there would mean never growing up, never learning anything new. That moment was great, but it was just one moment. If I stayed there forever, I'd never have any other moments. The football field faded away, and now Danny was sitting in the unemployment office. He was 25, filling out paperwork after losing his job at the grocery store. He remembered feeling angry and embarrassed. Everyone his age seemed to be doing better than him. "Your life has been full of failures," the voice said. "You have achieved little. Do you not hate those who have succeeded where you have failed?" Danny looked at his younger self, slumped in the plastic chair and trying not to cry. He remembered that day clearly. He had wanted to blame everyone else for his problems. His boss for firing him. His teachers for not preparing him better. His parents for not having enough money to send him to college. "I used to feel that way," Danny said. "I was angry at successful people for a long time. But being angry didn't help me get a better job. It just made me bitter and mean. Hating other people's success doesn't make you any less of a failure. It just makes you a failure who's also angry all the time. The scene changed again. Now Danny was in his apartment with Katie, having their last fight before she moved out. He could see himself getting defensive and mean when she tried to talk about their future together. "This woman left you because you were not good enough," the voice said. "She wanted more than you could give her." Danny watched himself argue with Katie and felt sad. She was right to leave. I wasn't ready to be the person she needed. I was too scared of failing to even try to succeed. Katie deserved someone who would fight for their relationship instead of just accepting that it was doomed. More scenes flowed around Danny like a movie playing at super speed. His childhood, his teenage years, his jobs, his mistakes, his small victories, his big disappointments. With each scene, the voice asked him questions, trying to understand what made Danny Price who he was. Finally, the scene stopped, and Danny found himself floating in space surrounded by stars and galaxies. It was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. Colors that had no names swirled through clouds of gas and dust. New stars were being born in explosions of light that could have powered Earth for 1,000,000 years. But something was wrong. In all that beauty, Danny felt a deep sadness that wasn't his own. "Where are you?" Danny asked the voice. "I can hear you, but I can't see you." The space around him shimmered, and suddenly Danny wasn't alone anymore. Floating near him was something that looked almost like a person but made of light instead of flesh. It changed shape constantly, sometimes looking human, sometimes becoming patterns of energy that hurt to look at directly. "I am the last," the voice said, and now Danny could see that it came from the being of light. "My people learned to live forever. We became pure energy, pure thought, pure knowledge. We thought we had achieved perfection." Danny floated closer to the being. Up close, he could see that the light was beautiful but cold, like starlight reflecting off ice. What happened to the others? They chose to move beyond physical existence entirely. They became one with the universe itself, leaving behind all individual thought and feeling. I was the only one who refused to take that final step. "Why?" Danny asked. The being's light pulsed sadly. "Because I realized what we had lost in becoming perfect. We had given up the very things that made existence meaningful. Love, friendship, the pain of loss, the joy of discovery. We had become gods, but we had forgotten how to be alive." Danny began to understand. "You're lonely." "Yes," the being said, and its voice was full of centuries of sadness. "I have been alone for longer than your species has existed. I have watched civilizations rise and fall. I have seen wonders beyond imagination. But I have had no one to share any of it with. That's why you're testing us," Danny said. "You're not looking for the smartest or strongest humans. You're looking for someone who understands what it means to be lonely." The being's light grew brighter. "Your leaders think in terms of power and control. Your warriors see only conflict. Your scientists want to study and catalog everything. But you see pain where others see strength. How did you know what I was feeling?" Danny thought about all. The nights he had spent alone in his apartment, all the times he had felt like he didn't belong anywhere, all the moments when he had wondered if anyone would miss him if he was gone. "Because I've been lonely too," he said. "Really lonely. The kind of lonely that makes you feel like you're invisible even when you're in a room full of people. When you've felt that way, you can recognize it in others, even when they're trying to hide it." The being moved closer, and Danny could feel warmth radiating from its light. For the first time in the conversation, the voice sounded hopeful. "Yes," it said. "You understand. This is why I have chosen you, Danny Price. Not because you are perfect, but because you have remained beautifully, wonderfully imperfect. You have failed and been hurt and felt lost, but you have not let those experiences make you cruel or closed off from others." Danny felt something changing inside him, like a door opening in his mind that he hadn't known was there. Light flowed between him and the alien being, but it wasn't cold anymore. It was warm and alive and full of possibilities he couldn't even imagine. "What happens now?" Danny asked. "Now," the being said, "you help me remember what it means to be truly alive. And perhaps in time, you help your people learn the same lesson." The space around Danny filled with warm, golden light. The alien being's form became more solid, more real. It still looked like it was made of energy, but now Danny could see something like a face in the shifting patterns of light. The face looked sad and hopeful at the same time. "I have a name," the being said, "though it has been so long since anyone spoke it that I had almost forgotten. My people called me Kethvara, which means the one who remembers in your language." "It's nice to meet you, Kethvara," Danny said. "I'm sorry you've been alone for so long." Kethvara's light pulsed brighter. "You are the first being in 1,000 years to speak my name. The first to see my loneliness instead of my power. This is why I chose you, Danny Price." Danny felt the warmth of Kethvara's presence flowing through him like sunlight. It didn't hurt, but it changed something deep inside him. He could feel his mind expanding like a room suddenly getting bigger. New thoughts and feelings and ways of seeing the world opened up inside his head. "What's happening to me?" Danny asked. "I am sharing a small part of myself with you," Kethvara explained. "Not my technology or my knowledge of science. Those things would only make your people more dangerous to themselves and others. Instead, I am giving you something much more valuable. I am giving you the ability to truly see other beings, to understand their hearts, to feel what they feel." Danny gasped as new sensations flooded through him. He could feel Kethvara's loneliness, but also the joy the ancient being felt at finally having someone to talk to. He could sense the other volunteers back on the Mercury, their worry and hope mixing together. Even from this great distance, he could feel the fear and excitement of people on Earth waiting to hear what had happened. "This is what my people lost," Kethvara said sadly. "In becoming perfect, we forgot how to connect with others. We became so focused on knowledge and power that we stopped caring about the simple joy of friendship." "But you didn't forget," Danny said. "You stayed behind when the others left. Yes, and I have regretted it and been grateful for it every day since. I regretted it because the loneliness was sometimes unbearable. I was grateful because it meant I was still capable of feeling something real." The golden light around them began to pulse in rhythm with both their heartbeats. Danny realized that Kethvara didn't just have a heartbeat in the human sense, but something similar, a core of energy that kept the ancient being alive and connected to the universe. "Your people sent me their best," Kethvara continued. "Military, leaders who thought in terms of conquest, scientists who wanted to take apart my ship and study it, diplomats who saw me as a puzzle to be solved. But you are different. You see me as someone who has been hurt and needs a friend." Danny nodded. "Everyone needs friends, even aliens who live forever." "Especially aliens who live forever," Kethvara said with something that might have been laughter. "Time means nothing when you have endless amounts of it. But friendship, love, connection, these things make time meaningful." "So what happens now?" Danny asked. "Do you come back to Earth with me? Do I stay here with you?" Kethvara's form shifted, becoming more human-like. "Neither. You will return to your people, but you will carry part of me with you always. Through our connection, I will experience life as humans do, messy, short, full of mistakes and joy and pain. And you will help your people understand what I have learned in my long existence." "I don't know if I'm the right person for that job," Danny said. "I'm not a leader or a teacher. I'm just a guy who fixes air filters." "That is exactly why you are the right person," Kethvara replied. "Leaders think they must be strong all the time. Teachers think they must have all the answers. But you know what it feels like to be uncertain, to make mistakes, to fail and try again. Your people will listen to you because you are one of them, not because you are above them." Danny felt a change beginning around them. The golden light was fading, but the warmth in his chest remained. He could feel Kethvara's presence settling into his mind like a gentle friend taking a seat beside him. "Will I still be me?" Danny asked. "You will be more yourself than you have ever been," Kethvara promised. "I am not changing who you are. I am helping you become who you were always meant to be." The space around them dissolved, and Danny found himself back on the Mercury. Captain Brooks and all the volunteers were staring at him with wide eyes. Danny looked down at himself and was surprised to see that he looked completely normal. He had expected to glow or look different somehow. "Danny," Tony Chen said carefully, "are you okay? You were gone for 3 hours." 3 hours? It had felt like minutes to Danny. "I'm fine," he said, and he meant it. For the first time in his life, he felt completely fine. Not happy exactly, but peaceful in a way he had never experienced before. "What happened?" Betty Adams asked. "Did you meet them?" "The aliens? I met one alien," Danny said. "He's been alone for a very long time, and he chose me to be his friend." The volunteers looked confused. Captain Brooks frowned. "That's it? Friendship? What about technology? What about knowledge? What about all the things humanity could learn? From them?" Danny smiled, and somehow his smile made everyone in the room feel calmer. "Those things aren't gifts you can just hand to someone. They're things you have to earn by becoming the kind of people who deserve them. Right now, we're not ready." "So what are we supposed to do?" Gary Miller asked. "We go home," Danny said. "And we try to be better. We try to remember that being human isn't about being perfect or powerful. It's about caring for each other, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." The journey back to Earth took 6 days, but it felt different this time. Danny spent hours talking with each of the volunteers, and somehow he always knew exactly what to say to make them feel better about themselves. When Tony worried about his daughter's future, Danny helped him see all the ways he was already a good father. When Betty felt old and useless, Danny reminded her of all the lives she had touched in her 20 years of space work. Word of Danny's success spread quickly once they reached Earth. Within days, he was invited to speak to world leaders, scientists, and reporters. But Danny insisted on speaking to regular people first. He visited schools and factories, shopping centers and community centers. He talked to anyone who would listen about what he had learned. "The alien didn't choose our best and brightest," Danny would tell his audiences. "He chose someone who understood what it meant to be lonely, to fail, to feel lost. He chose someone who knew that our mistakes don't make us worthless. They make us human." Months passed, and slowly, things began to change. Not the big, dramatic changes that people had expected from first contact with aliens. Instead, small changes happened in millions of individual hearts. People started being kinder to each other. They started listening more and judging less. They started to value compassion over competition. And somewhere in the space between Earth and Mars, Keth Vera's ship continued its patient orbit. The ancient being was no longer alone. Through his connection with Danny, he experienced every sunrise. Danny watched every laugh Danny shared with friends, every moment of simple human joy. Danny Price never became famous in the way that heroes usually do. He went back to fixing air filters and doing ordinary work. But everyone who met him came away feeling like they had been in the presence of something special. Not because Danny was perfect, but because he had learned the most important lesson in the universe. Everyone deserves to be loved even when they don't deserve it. Everyone deserves compassion, even when they make mistakes. Everyone deserves a friend, even ancient aliens who have forgotten how to live. And sometimes, the most ordinary person can teach the whole world how to be extraordinary.